YouTube, what's happening? Hope you are good and welcome back to part 2 of your last few kgs in the last 30 to 40 days. And this is now an episode of how you can actually build upon it, because something I see so often is majority of people now want to go take on bigger and better things like fitness events, running events, right? The really cool stuff. But the reality is they want to do these things in shape, but trying to manage both of these at the same time can be very difficult, like I spoke in the last episode. And this is now building upon you've now dropped the body fat the last few kgs, and this is now how you build upon it so you can keep the fat loss gone forever, you can keep the old body away, keep that new body in line and in check, and perform at your very best. So gonna drop a few points in this episode here to ensure you can build upon your first initial result of dropping those last few kgs and really progress on. So you've now dropped the body fat and you also want to go into a second stage, and the second stage is called a stabilization phase. And I'll be completely honest with you, I've made this mistake myself in the past where I've tried to go from fat loss into fitness event, and I actually haven't sat in a stabilization phase. And this is how and why I've built my coaching business this way of becoming the unstoppable, right? Is because when clients go from fat loss to fitness events, they have to sit in a stabilization phase for around 6 to 10 weeks. And the reason why it's around 6 to 10 weeks is because it's a great time frame to test your behaviors of what you built in the last phase to where you are right now, because you want to take on bigger and better goals. But the skill level goes up, right? And the skill demand then goes up, which means fatigue may be more, hunger may be at a heightened level, right? You've now got more food in your system because you're gonna have to bring food up. Now you're coming out of a calorie deficit and you're now moving into maintenance. And people do start to take the piss in this zone with nutrition. That's where they start to lose their body. Stress will always be there. So it's, okay, are we now actually behaving in alignment with how we need to behave to keep the body and build upon the body so we can perform the way we want, right? So instead of rushing this process, you now do it in a structured way that's going to allow you to build in the correct way so you don't have to return to old ways. Because I'm sure you've said in the past, I've done this before, I know I can do it again. And the reality is, if you say that and you haven't got evidence to back it up, you've never done it properly before. Because this is how it should be built out. This is how it needs to happen. So you now go into a stabilization phase before the fitness event. And what you now do here is test your behaviors around your food, around recovery, around the basic standards of sleep, how you structure your weeks, your training standards, right? Because ultimately what we're trying to do here is gain feedback of, are we ready now to take on more, aka stage 3, the fitness event stuff, or the strength phase, right? And the reality is, making sure you nail this phase here is most probably the most important phase out of the 3 right now. There is a 4th stage and the 5th stage, but for right now we're looking at 3 stages. Because this is where the work really starts, because it's now very easy to go backwards. Very easy to gain the old body and put the weight back on. And this is where you want sole focus of 6 to 10 weeks of hard graft of testing your behavior around food, around recovery, around training. Because we're going to now ramp things up slightly in terms of skill demand, because you're going to have your sight set on different targets, whether it's a strength phase, whether it's a fitness event, whether it's a running event, right? They require a different approach nutritionally compared to a fat loss phase. Meaning, in this stabilization phase, stage 2, what we want to look at is bring the skill level of your training up, which means the demand through your body will naturally go up as well, which will mean your hunger may spike. And if our behavior around food isn't aligned and we start to get sloppy with our standards and start to take the piss with the amount of food volume we can now have, it's now very easy to go backwards. So this is the phase here that's really important to nail before moving into phase 3 to ensure we keep the body that we've built, we build upon that body so we're getting stronger and we're getting fitter, and you can handle the skill demand within the new training level. And in a stabilization phase, you want to break it down from training, nutrition, recovery, right? And let's just look at nutrition, for example. You've now been in a fat loss phase. So we now want to bring food up slowly so we have control and we have consistency around that food intake of what's being put into our body, right? To ensure that our body is keeping off the body fat, but we're building strength and we're building fitness from just a nutritional standpoint. So what you want to do is bring your calories up over like a 4 to 6 week period. And what you want to do is bring your calories up 100 calories per week. So let's just say you need 2,000 calories to drop body fat, but your maintenance is 2,500. What you want to do is finish that fat loss phase, which you should have done by now in the last 30 to 40 days of dropping those last few kgs. What you're then going to do is go from 2,000 to 2,100. The second week, 2,200, third, 2,300, fourth, and so on, right? Until you get up to your maintenance level. Ultimately, the aim of the game is weight shouldn't actually spike up because you're now doing this slowly and gradual. So you've got control of every area in terms of food quality, calories, and body weight. And also, from there, you should see a higher performance within your training because you've now got more food. Naturally, you're going to have more energy because you've now got more food in the system. By doing it in this controlled way, you gain control of absolutely everything. Naturally, this should mean your behavior around food should be absolutely nailed in just 4 weeks. But we want to test on a 6 to 10 week window just because that gives us a little bit of extra time to really expose what's going on and gain feedback of where we're currently at. From there, step into stage 3 once you've nailed training, nutrition, and recovery standpoint in a behavioral way when it comes to stabilization. But that there just in itself is a nutritional area to be mastered. And now from a training standpoint, you want to work in 4 to 6 week cycles. Again, training doesn't really want to massively change. Let's say you've got a goal in mind of you want to run a half marathon. Now, gradually what you do, you would actually switch that training around from the previous episode of just strength training like 3 to 4 times a week. You'd most probably look at bringing the strength training down to 3 times a week and maybe running twice a week or having 4 strength sessions and 1 run. And ultimately what's going to happen here in a 4 to 6 week cycle is the exercises stay pretty similar, but volume may go up, tempos may change quite a bit within your training, which means the stress through your body and the intensity that is going to go through it is definitely going to improve and change, which then again could cause longer recovery, which could cause hunger to spike and energy to suffer. So again, you need to have this nicely aligned, ensure that food quality is there, calories are being hit depending on what week you are when you're coming out of your deficit. And ultimately, you want to be gaining feedback from your training. Can you actually handle this amount of volume? Can you handle the amount of intensity? And does that sit and then align with behavior around food? If it does, do you know what? Over a 4 to 6 week block and then another 4 weeks on top, taking you around that 10-week mark, then again, it's a big tick in the box. You've gained the feedback. In this stabilization phase, you are absolutely nailing it because you now can handle this new skill demand, meaning nutrition is being managed. Energy is in a good spot. You can now handle, point 3, the new skill demand. You can now step out of the stabilization and you can now step into a complete performance phase. And this is solely driven on the actual event, but that is for a different episode, which will be dropping next week. But this period of time of a 6 to 10 week stabilization phase, all you're trying to do is build even more self-awareness, layers of self-awareness that allow you to have great feedback and a great scope of exactly what's going on for where you're currently at. Because if you can manage yourself really well, you're managing your lifestyle effectively and the behaviors are aligned for the goals you want to now tackle going forwards, then it's going to put you in a really strong spot of control and confidence to actually go and tackle this fitness event. And that stabilization phase, that is the aim of the game, to ensure you are absolutely at it, because you can now go into stage 3, which is a performance event, and have complete confidence that you can go with freedom to attack this goal, which is then going to allow you to perform at your best because you're not juggling the other side of it, which is the body side of things, because you've absolutely nailed it. Solely focus on that fitness event in itself, which is another episode to come, which is stage 3, a performance event, of how you are going to exactly lay it out in terms of timeframes, in terms of training, in terms of nutrition, and how it all needs to be periodized to ensure you peak for your event and arrive at the event with the body you want. So legends, I'll see you in the next episode. If you have found this episode useful, please share it with a friend, and also click subscribe underneath to make sure you're up to date with every episode going forwards to ensure you can perform at the best in phase 3.